Okay, well, hello everybody. Today's topic is one of those topics that's maybe a little bit sensitive, but it's an extremely important topic, especially if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the bankruptcy process. If you're in a position where maybe this has crossed your mind as an option, or even if not, understanding, uh, you know, kind of what happens as you get closer to that idea of, gee, is bankruptcy really right for me? There's a couple of pretty simple things that we can go through to help you evaluate where you are in the process and see if you're headed in the right direction or if you're headed in the wrong direction. So again, this section is just called "Is Bankruptcy Right for You?" And just a quick reminder, just as a disclaimer here, this video is not intended to be providing any sort of legal advice, tax advice, or financial advice. What we really have done here is provided a nice summary of information that you can find publicly available in other places, but we've consolidated it here for you, and I hope put it into a format that is a little bit easy to understand. So if you need legal, tax, or financial advice, obviously seek the guidance of an attorney who's qualified in this area, a CPA, or a certified financial planner. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. We're going to go through a timeline of the bankruptcy process. We're going to talk about levels of control, and we're actually going to cover that first before we get into the timeline. And really, those are the two primary things. So we're going to cover control and timeline as it relates to your finances and as it relates to whether, kind of how to decide whether or not you're headed towards a decision for bankruptcy or not. So it's important, and this really takes us back to some of the topics that we cover in the core classes, the core LifeSense video training. But before even knowing whether or not you need to file for bankruptcy, and quite frankly, this is information that you just need to know anyway, there's a couple of things that you just need to have at your fingertips. You really should have a good feeling for your assets and liabilities. And if you remember, and if you went through the core training, you're going to understand what those are if you've been preparing a balance sheet for yourself on a fairly regular basis. If you've been preparing a balance sheet and been accurate in doing it, then you're going to know exactly what your assets and liabilities really are. Similarly, you'll remember we also covered the income statement, and so you really should have a pretty good sense of income and expenses in your life, just the way that you've got things set up right now. Are you making more than you spend, or are you spending more than you make? Being able to track that on a monthly basis is pretty important. And kind of a subcategory of that is, are you running your financial life with a budget in place? And if so, how is that going? What issues are you facing, and so forth. So that's kind of a nice list of things that you should be tracking anyway. But as you potentially approach a decision about whether or not bankruptcy is a good solution for you, you're going to have these things in place to be able to provide to folks anyway. The last thing, if you are getting close to a bankruptcy decision, you're going to want to be in touch with an approved credit counselor. And the reason that it's important to do this early on, first of all, it's important that they're an approved credit counselor. You can check with your county. Typically the counties where you live, it's important to select a credit counselor that's been approved in those counties. And quite frankly, seeing a credit counselor is a required component of going through the bankruptcy process. So if you feel like you're in a position where it's time to at least talk to one, don't waste the opportunity and go talk to somebody that's not approved. Find someone that is approved and go see them, and that will take care of the requirement of having seen a credit counselor as part of your process. Okay, well, I think it's an interesting way to look at this, and I think this is a great presentation. We're going to draw here what we're going to term the financial control spectrum. Okay, and we're going to draw five different buckets here. Hopefully I can make this work okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we have 5 categories. And so the first category, we're just going to capture this as being in charge. Okay, and we'll get into a couple of details later, but this category is we'll give you some bullet points about how to determine whether you're really in charge of your finances or not. So the next category is what we call still in charge, but we just add that word still in the beginning to suggest that maybe you're getting close to maybe not being in as much charge as before. This third category is what we call dealing with others. Okay, and this is the category where you're not in total charge anymore. You've started to potentially negotiate with some creditors or people that you owe money to, and that kind of thing. But again, we'll lay out some details here in a minute. Here is the section where you're really thinking about bankruptcy. So we'll call this decision towards bankruptcy. Okay, and then the last one here is clearly when someone else is in charge. Okay, so just to kind of visualize this even a little bit more, this section over here is pretty green. This section is going to get a little bit less green. This section is like red light, green light. So a little bit yellow there, red, and then double red down here. Okay, so that kind of gives you a sense of this is really a spectrum. So you may not fall right in one of these buckets. This really is a spectrum. You fall somewhere along these lines, and in some cases you may fall in more than one category. So let's talk about a few categories over here. So the first one is going to be credit score, okay? And in this category, your credit score is probably, let's do this in white. So your credit score is going to be probably 720 or higher, okay? You're not going to be late on any payments, so this is your payment history. And by the way, all of this stuff is available in your credit report, which you should be looking at, at least twice a year. I generally recommend you sign up for some of the credit monitoring services. So take a look at some of those and decide whether those are right for you. Your budget is under control, right? And you're probably saving 10 to 20% of what you make. Okay. So again, credit score of 720. You're not late on any payments. You're in control of your budget, and you're saving 10 to 20% of what you earn. Still in charge. Your credit score is still in that 720 range. You're still not late on payments. Maybe here though you're starting to adjust your lifestyle a little bit. In other words, maybe your budget is now you're spending just about what you're making, and so because of that, you've really stopped saving. Okay, compared to saving 10 to 20% over here in the in charge category. Okay, so now when you're dealing with others, your credit score may have slipped a little bit. Now you're down in the 640 to 720 range, and that's probably because you're a little bit late with some payments. Okay. Your lifestyle is getting a little bit compromised now. It's more than just adjusting your lifestyle, but now your lifestyle is compromised. You're really making some sacrifices. And it could be now that you're actually using savings to pay bills. So again, we've gone from saving 10 to 20%. Here we've stopped saving, and here in this third category, you're actually starting to use some savings to pay for your overdue bills and that kind of thing. Okay, so now down here, your credit score may have slipped even below 600. You may be 60 to 90 days late on some bills. Your lifestyle is really kind of getting into crisis mode. You're really thinking about everything that you do. You think about every dollar you spend. You're really worried about losing things that are important to you. Maybe it's your car or your house, that kind of thing. And so you're really in crisis here. And here you might even be using credit or borrowing to pay bills. Okay, so you're really robbing Peter to pay Paul here to pay your bills. In this last section, your credit score at this point is probably irrelevant. It doesn't at this point matter so much what it is. It's certainly below the 600 level. You have stopped making payments to certain creditors, maybe all of them. You're in a situation where you're just able to provide for basic needs, and not only are you using credit for bills, but savings are totally depleted. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just very bad shape down here as far as the savings is concerned. Savings are gone. You're borrowing to pay. You've got really nothing left. So, as you can see, you might fit in one or more of these categories. Your credit score may still be 720, but maybe your budget, you're really at this level where you've stopped saving, and so your budget is a little bit more in crisis, but because you're able to pay all your bills on time, your credit score is still in pretty good shape. So again, you might not be in any one of these categories, but I think it's a great way to look at this and see, what the spectrum looks like and give you a sense of, gee, where am I on the spectrum, and what do I need to be really paying attention to?